Well, welcome to today for this session. I want to first of all tell you, I really invite you to pull up on the Seek Church website and pull up the interview we had with Rick Renner. We had one with Bob Yandian, we had one with Mario Morello, and the last one we had was Rick Renner. I enjoyed the one on Rick Renner because we were talking about the end of times, and he said, can you believe how many people are so fearful? And we talked about, you can understand the world being so fearful, but I don't understand the church being so fearful, because the word talks about all these things happening, and he said, but not to be troubled. And yet you see Christians beginning to wring their hands, and I thought, what? This is a sign that we are coming to the end of the end of the end. And I thought about this when I began to hear different reports coming in. I thought the song, soon and very soon, we're going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we're going to see the King. And if you focus on, I'll say it this way, how soon we are to the time that we're going to be raptured out of here, and the worst of things will be after we're gone, I think you can change your whole focus. That you can, yes, you have compassion for all that we're going through at the moment, but you can have joy in your heart. And I think about it all the time. I do. I go through the day. Things like, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel? No, I'm going to let it shine. And we used to sing that as a kid. And it's amazing to me that when all these reports begin to come in, I begin to think like a child. And I thought, you know why I think like a child? Because I've got revelation of God being my Father. And just as a father's going to protect his children, so is God is divine protection for you and I. And when you get a really revelation of that, you can go through life with knowing. Somebody said, but what if the worst happened? I said, the worst thing that can happen to a Christian is you have one breath here and one breath over there forever with him. Doesn't sound like it's too bad of a deal. In the meantime, we can work havoc against the enemy. And I think if we begin to think about that, wow, it's our time. I wish I could hear you say it back after. It's our time. It's our time to shout. It's our time to shine. I mean, people in the grocery store, you can say to them now, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray Psalms 91 for divine protection for you. And they don't say, oh, no. You know, you said they would give you this kind of look. But now they're so glad. They're even willing for a stranger to pray for them. Oh, don't let your heart be troubled. Start thinking about, yes, what's going on. And you do have compassion for people that are sick, but there's healing for them. You do have compassion for the loss of people, but you don't become focused on the loss and forget about what is happening, what God is doing, and what God has planned for us. Let me read you Matthew chapter 24, verse 3. Now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, talking about Jesus, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Wow, just think, he's going to split that sky one day, and the church is going to be called away up there to be with him forever. Before the worst happens, we're going to be able to sing that song, I'll Fly Away. We're going to be able to realize, wow, it's over for us. It's over for us. We're going to be with him forever. But he gave instructions for us until the time comes that we're raptured out. He never leaves you wondering on things, on truths. He said, and Jesus answered and said to them, take heed. See, he's given them divine instructions. Take heed that no one deceive you. For many will come in my name saying, I am the anointed one, or I am anointed, and will deceive many. So I realize that in the last of the last days, which is where we are, we've got to be very cautious that we're not deceived. Everything has to be, I'll say it this way, you have any truth that is revealed, you'll find in the Word. God will give you an ability to discern, no matter what somebody says, is that from God? Does that agree with the Word? It has to always agree with the Word. Anytime they deviate from the Word, I say, you have just deviated from me. When people talks about, what's going on in my government, when they I'll say it this way, when they venture away from the word, they ventured away from truth for me. And that means deception has come in. And I said, well, they're deceived, but because they're deceived, I'm not going to be deceived because I'm going to believe what the word says. He says, he says this, you will hear wars and rumors of wars. Wow. But then he said, see that you're not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. He said, it's still not the end. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilence, I say plagues, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. When the time of sorrows come, there'll be a tribulation period. That's called the time of sorrows. But when it begins like this, folks, that's not our time. You're going to see it, but guess what? We're going to be raptured out. But he said, now you have a responsibility. Okay, what is my responsibility, Lord, when I see all this? Number one, don't be deceived. Number two, I am responsible not to be troubled. See, people say, oh, pray that I get. No, you watch it. You get to the word, and if you get to the word, you won't be deceived and you won't be troubled. Now, how can you see all this happening and yet your heart not be so troubled? First of all, when you have a revelation of God being your Father, everything changes. When you begin to realize the protection of Almighty God, the love, the mercy, the goodness and kindness is there, you expect divine protection from God. You expect that everything, I'll say it this way, in the end, everything's going to be all right. And somebody said, well, but what about if I die? And I said, well, if you die, the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to be with God forever and ever and ever. When you begin to realize even death is not a finality, it's just one breath here, one breath over there. So in the meantime, you don't be deceived. In the meantime, you don't give up. You still have hope. You still have dreams, and you have a divine assignment from God. What is it? To reach out and help others. Listen what he says in Luke 21, in verse 25. And there will be signs in the, I love this, in the sun, in the moon, and the stars, and on the earth, distress of nations, and perplexity, not knowing what to do. The sea and the waves roaring. Men's heart failing them from fear, and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. In other words, you begin to expect the worst. You allow to fear, and when fear comes in, it's torment. I mean, I remember when I was young. Now, the war, I said the horror movies that we watch, nothing like what they are now. The horror movies that were on our TV when I was young was the spaceship and the aliens, things that you knew were not real, but still it scared you. Well, I loved to be scared like that. I mean, because I knew it was going to be all right. And I began to watch them. And then I began to realize, you know what, I'm afraid. So I'd go wake my husband up. And I said, Earl, come watch this with me. And he said, I'm not going to watch a dumb program like that. I said, yes, but I want to watch it. And you're my husband. And I used the female thing on him. I said, you're supposed to be my protector. So come in there. And we had a recliner. I said, lay in the recliner. I want to sit in your lap. And so I'd watch it and I'd get scared and I'd take his arms and put them around me because that made me feel a little protected. And I'd watch that thing. But what I didn't realize is what was being planted in me. You can't focus on negative. You can't focus on gloom, despair, agony, and all, like the hee-haw used to say. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. You can't center your thought pattern, your mind on negative things all the time. Murder, kidnapping. You can't do that, but what it doesn't affect you. I didn't realize how much it affected me because I'd realize, none of that's real. And one night we were laying in bed asleep, and all at once I thought I heard something, and I woke up and I said, Earl, don't say anything. But somebody just came in the house. He said, how do you know? I said, I heard them. They're in the living room. He said, I don't hear anything. I said, you never hear anything. but I can hear. And I said, shh. And I said, Earl, I hear the footsteps. They're coming down the hall. And then all at once I said, he's at the foot of the bed. And when I did that, Earl took the pillow and threw at him. There was nobody there. Because I realized they would have jumped and they would have yelled. And I said, oh, what a protector you are. I started laughing. You threw a pillow. What are you going to do? Have a pillow fight with him? And he said, Datha, you jumped on top of me. That's all I could do was throw a pillow. And I realized this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. This is something you could make a movie. There was nobody there. But I realized I had planted the seed. The stranger comes in. I remember when I was young, I hate to tell you this, one guy said, let's just go down this. There's a lot of Lover's Lane. But I had heard there was a thing going around about this couple went down this Lover's Lane, and all at once they thought they heard something, and so they took off real fast. And all at once when they stopped where they were safe, there was the hand of the man on the door handle outside the door. And that was the story going around. It's amazing where it happened at all different locations. It was somebody made it up. But by the time you tell it, you keep hearing it, you're in it. I said, go down to Lover's Lane. I don't want no hand on no door handle. I said, no, not me. It wasn't because I was so good. It was because I was so afraid. Because I'd heard the story so many times till I had visualized it happening. It is amazing what you do with your mind. And it amazes me how many people today, they sit there and watch news over and over again. So many people died today. And then they say, well, was it the virus? Well, they had extenuating circumstances. They were compromised. But they never seemed to tell me how many died because they were compromised and how many actually died of just the virus. And I realized, you know what? I don't think I want to watch this all the time. Because after all, at my age, I was in the category where they thought, okay, if you get sick, you're going to die. And I thought, no. I'm too full of life for this. And I said, my daughter said, I don't want to watch this anymore. This is not good. And I'll tell you a little thing. I told you one time, she liked to watch detective movies. And of course, in detective, everybody died. So I came down to where the room where she was. I said, you know what? I've sort of noticed you watch a lot of murder. I said, do you and I need to talk? Because in the murder programs you watch, somebody gets murdered. And said, I need to think, do you have anything against you? Is there anything we need to talk about? Of course, she laughed. But I thought to myself, don't put murder in your thought life. And if you watch it, you'll begin to think it. If all you do is watch things about sickness, before you know it, you're going to have that same ache and pain. I thought to myself, dear Lord, you better take a cough drop with you, because if you go to some of these places and you're coughing, they're going to escort you out. I went for a checkup the other day, and so I'm signing my name in. They've got this glass panel, which is all fine. I'm signing my name in with my own pencil, and then when somebody's going to say, what are you doing? She said, I'm checking for fever. I said, well, can I sign my name in before you put an instrument in my ear? I just begin to think, oh, dear me. People have gone beyond being concerned till they're walking around in absolute fear. We don't have to live that way. Well, if you don't want to be fearful, be careful. There's nothing wrong with watching the news and keeping up with it. But if that's all you do, you're in trouble. If you don't replace fear with hope, if you don't replace fear with faith, then guess what? Fear is a magnet when it comes to disease, sickness, everything else. Fear pulls to you negative. Faith pulls away. So I just want you not to be in fear. I want you to read Psalms 91. When you read Psalms 91, it talks about the protection of all the Almighty. And I love the last part of it, because he said, God begins to speak. When you talk to God about who he is, God's going to talk back to you about who you are. And this is what he said when they were talking in Psalm 91. Some people say it's David, some people say it's Moses. I don't really know. I think probably it was Moses. And that's amazing to me because I think that's not a side of Moses that I knew. Whoever wrote it was wrote by the Holy Ghost. And this is what God said to him. Because he set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. And in the Amplified it says, I'll deliver him and I'll throw him a party. No, we serve a wonderful God who will rescue you and throw you a party of hope. God bless you. Tune in again.